work session tonight, and we'll just turn it over to Dr. Are we going to go into closed session first thing? Or
No, let's take care of a little bookkeeping.
All right.
We have several little announcements, and Dr. Putnam's going to give you all a brief update on the new reporting app. You've probably heard some about that, and then in closed session we'll talk a little bit more about that, as well as personnel and the other reasons listed for closed session. But just some general announcements. I think it's a good way just to remind us of folks without having too much business. The commissioners meeting for the hopefully the approval of the new 3-year funding formula is scheduled for February the 17th at 5:30 p.m. We think that is a very fair formula. It will not give us money to add a whole lot to our budget, but it should make us pretty solvent for 3 years, as long as we don't lose a lot of students or spend unnecessarily. So that looks good. Bryant Moorhead and I, with the help of Julie Davis and Angie, hammered out the language. It is a little different. I'll tell you that the main thing that is different about that is we went through a number of funding formula cycles where we were averaging 3 years together. And so you know what happens if you take 1.9 and 2.3 and 2.1 and average them together, you get something close to 2.1. And so what we have convinced the county manager to do, and it makes has told me he's very much in favor of it, is to just have a percentage increase per student per year for a 3-year period. That will be, sorry, it's a call about my brother, but I already know what's going on there. He's had a few health problems, but it's good. That will not be great if we lose students, because the overall amount of funding will not go up by the per pupil percentage, but it will be very beneficial when we get some building going on and people moving in. We'll get that amount per student, so we're very hopeful that that will go well. Any questions about the funding formula of the meeting? If you can attend, great. If not, I think that's okay too. We've worked on this for quite some time, and at least everyone that has worked on it feels pretty good about it. The second thing is, you'll remember during closed session last month, I came to you and said, I need to correct a personnel file. And I talked to you about correcting that file and how I would do about that, and I really needed your permission to do that. And I told you in closed session that before we did personnel, I would bring that up, and you all could act on it one way or the other. Well, it was a rushed meeting last month, and I was thinking about introducing a finance director, a head football coach, and watching some college football game that was going on that night. And I just forgot to do that. So unless you have an objection, I'll just literally put it on the agenda as an item right before personnel. Okay, so just oversight. We had a pretty quick flowing meeting last month. We are having a reception for National Board teachers. We were recently recognized. You'll remember Mr. Hines talked to us about being recognized as one of the districts in the nation with a high percentage of National Board certified teachers. And so we want to recognize them. We're going to have a reception next Monday at 4 p.m. We realize that some of you cannot come, and that even when you arrive, you'll be in buildings and grounds or finance. But if it's possible, and you could come around 4 o'clock, I think they would appreciate that. And then during the meeting, I think Mr. Hines will be recognizing the new people. So just wanted to, and that will be next door in the cafeteria at Central Haywood. We seem to be having a lot of turnover right now. Hope that's not my fault, but we have two people who've given us great service. for many, many years, and they're retiring at the end of this month. And there's a reception for Mr. Mashburn on Valentine's Day at 1 p.m. at Central Haywood. I know that's in the middle of the day, but that was a time that was convenient for him and his staff. So, but we did want to let you all know about that. And that is at Central Haywood. And then for Angie Gardner, our finance director, we will have a reception at the central office at 2 on February the 26th. And again, that time was mainly for those people. And if you can attend, that would be great. Any questions about those items? Just want to make sure you had those. At this time, if there aren't any questions, we'll ask Dr. Putnam to give you the layout and how the new app works, and a little bit about the training. And then if there are some questions you have about that might be confidential, we can talk about those in closed session.
Thank you. The Say Something anonymous reporting app is working as expected. It is not without error or flaw. We're working through those. If you'll remember, in long-range planning, one of the items that come out of one of the long-range planning groups was the ability to have an anonymous reporting app. This was facilitated by a change in state law and policy requiring us to employ some type of anonymous reporting app. The state provided this app to us free of charge. It is funded out of the Sandy Hook Promise and coordinated through our Department of Public Instruction. It has been, I'll share some successes and then I'll share some trials that we have with it. The successes, I'll start with those. We did a training at Waynesville Middle School, and I'll leave particulars out beyond this point. But we had a training at Waynesville Middle School, and shortly thereafter we had a young man come forward, and he said, you know, I need to share something with you. He's speaking to our school resource officer. And he said, okay, what is it? And said, well, my friend has been telling me that she's been being inappropriately touched by an adult, a member of the community, maybe. I don't want to get into any details there. But so they get to investigating and looking into the situation, and it turns out that this poor child had been repeatedly molested for from about age 4 to about age 8. And the importance of this app is, and the training that came out of it, is it brought about a real healthy awareness of, you know, it's okay to tell. If you go back to the adolescent brain, your friend would tell you, please don't share this, I'm telling you and only you. But it brought about an awareness on the part of our kids that there are certain things, regardless of, you know, what pledge you've made to keep quiet, you're going to bring it forward to keep your friends safe. And so that's been a real success immediately. The child's getting the help she needs, the appropriate charges and follow up on the criminal side of things are in action and taking place. So that's been really good. Another success story that we've had is we had what we thought to be a misuse of the app. 10 total tips came in for the same individual with repeated welfare checks by law enforcement. And finally a breakthrough yesterday at around 5 p.m. They made the welfare check, and treatment was given to the family, and treatment is being provided now ongoing for the child. And so those are the types of success stories that we're seeing. it has stressed all of us, and I don't say that in a negative way. It's just, so everyone's aware of the imposed responsibility this has placed on a lot of folks. Our SROs are now working on weekends where they once had those off quite a bit. I myself got a tip at 11:35 p.m. on a Saturday night, and then woke up to one at 5:22 a.m. the next morning. It's an ongoing thing, and I don't begrudge that because it helps our kids. I just want to point that out, that we've got a lot of folks really stretching themselves to keep our kids safe. There's a lot of extra effort going into that. The principals, the SROs, the assistant principals that are working literally at points in time nonstop through the night and into the morning on life safety tips. So there is some redundancy, duplication of services, if you will, that we're working through with Say Something Anonymous Reporting Group and their crisis center. For example, we received 4 separate tips, all of them regarding the same individual that was seeking assistance, and they repeated that. They sent it out. And not all of them, they were all related to the same individual who was seeking help or was in crisis, but they provided no additional information, so there was some confusion there. Is this the same person? It seems it came in 3 or 4 different tips, but we were able to boil that down and figure out, yes, it is about the same individual. Other things are, for example, the call center called me, called the principal, called 911 dispatch. I immediately take action, the principal immediately took action, and dispatch immediately took action, and we were overlapping our efforts. And so we're working through the bugs on why all 3 were contacted when each of us picked up on the tip. They should have stopped there and just sent the text and alerted the rest of us. So problems like that are being experienced, but those are things we can work through. But the end game here for Say Something Anonymous Reporting has been really good. There have been some success stories, and overall our kids feel like they have a vehicle to communicate anonymously, whereas maybe they wouldn't have before.
If I could, I want to brag on Trevor and tell you at least one clever thing that I thought he did with the implementation of the app. No charge.
Okay.
As you know, we put together, and when I say we, Trevor did most of the work, some safety teams at schools before there ever was an app. And those safety teams, as well as some other people with the School Justice Alliance, worked on a 7-step threat assessment plan. And we were one of the early districts to do that, and Trevor, in communicating with people at the state level, have asked him for a lot of information on that. And when the app came along, he very wisely just said, well, the people receiving the tips at each school need to be the people already on the safety teams. And so the way that works is simple, but I think could have easily been overlooked. So when there's a tip at a school, that tip goes just to the school. It goes to the principal, a counselor, admin people who are required to be on it, SRO. And then if there's an app that they deem to be life-threatening, then it will go to those individuals, but it will also go to the district team, which is Trevor and myself and Jill Barker. On the triplicate call he was talking about a while ago, Jill was freaking out and was in Power School sending information to Trevor, so they really overdid it with us. But I think it's really going to be a good thing, and I appreciate Trevor's work and the work of principals to train their students and staff. And while there will need to be some bugs worked out, and while it can be frustrating at times because you get multiple tips on the same thing, and once you tell them that you are addressing it, they really shouldn't send you the same information. It's really going to be a good thing, and Trevor's done a good job of putting that together.
Historically on those apps, I would say that it's like anything that when you first get it, it's going to be a lot of activity, and it's going to hopefully it'll come down and be at a quote unquote normal level.
And you're exactly right. The folks who trained all of our administrators and safety teams said there would be an initial spike due to the novelty of it, and some of it is, I don't know if this is a valid tip, but I want to err on the side of of caution and send it in anyway.
I would hope they would.
Absolutely. And then there's been some misuse, which that will quickly be curbed when they realize an officer is going to come to the house at 11:30, 12, 1 a.m. They come knocking on the door. So any misuse is, it's all treated as if it's the real thing. And so I imagine.
It's like calling 911 whenever you want to go to a hamburger joint or something.
Right, absolutely.
I'd say it would be taken seriously.
We had one family communicate to one of our principals, please don't come to our house anymore, which may or may not have been a good thing to say to us, but it's the real deal. It's sort of like calling the cavalry, and when the call's made and you think it's life-threatening, people roll, especially our law enforcement folks in Haywood County. The police, city police, and the county.
So does that system alert 911 or sheriff, or does it alert just school personnel and then they make
Depends on the level of the tip. If it's a depression or it's a fight that's maybe going to happen, anything that's not life-threatening, it's just going to the school. But if they if a tip comes in that maybe they want to do self-harm or they want to harm others, then the cavalry's being called. At that point, it's going to the school safety team, it's going to the district team, and it's going to 911 dispatch immediately, all three. And so we've got to find a healthy way through because, all of us trust one another, but none of us want to drop the ball. So we're all active, and so we're kind of stepping on each other as we're working rapidly to resolve the tip. So we'll have to find a healthy way through on that where we're not stepping all over each other as we're trying to work these tips.
It's pretty neat. I mean, it pops up, if you have it set up right, it pops up on your phone. And in a matter of seconds, I can look at it and go, oh, it's bad. Let's make sure the police know. Or, oh, looky here, someone's already responded, so I can set it down for a moment. It's pretty cool.
How has it been presented to the students, and how did that take place, and telling them, what to report, what not to report, how to report it?
There's a training video that's provided by the state, and it's a pretty quality video. What are the things I should put in a tip? What is considered a life-threatening situation? What things should I divulge? And it's not very long. It's maybe a 20 to 30 minute video, and the kids watch it. That video's been delivered in a variety of forms. It really was. The schools were given latitude in what worked best for their school and their schedule and their kids. And I think all of our schools have done a great job. I do want to make one distinction. This is not elementary schools. This is only for secondary schools. So our middle school and high schools are the only ones that have that, not elementary. But based on the feedback we've received, the video's been really good. And we actually had the lead specialist for Say Something anonymous reporting come and train our 911 dispatch, all of our principals and key members of the safety team, as well as our SROs. So we received it, I guess you would say, directly from the horse's mouth. So there wasn't anything missed there.
Is there any thought to expand the program for elementary kids at some point in time, or is it just not really set up that way? Or
There's I imagine people far smarter than me have looked at this, and the age of kid, K through 5, that's, you know, I just don't know if they're ready or have a full comprehension and a responsibility to make tips in a good and healthy manner. 5th grade maybe.
Mhm.
4th grade's getting kind of out of range. 3rd grade, I don't think so, and then on down. So I think they've also looked at what grade level do kids mostly encounter and become in crisis.
Mhm.
And it typically, you know, middle school is a very hard and trying time, and I know it was for me, and I'm sure for others, it's a hard time in kids' lives. And so that through high school seems to be the right target.
okay.
Any other questions about the app?
Okay. I guess now we can go into our closed session part. At this time, I'll entertain a motion. Well, let's do this. Call the meeting to order. At this time, I'll entertain a motion. We go into closed session. Mr. Clark made the motion, second by Mr. Kirkpatrick. Any question or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're in closed session. At this time, the meeting is adjourned.